Hey, this is Stacy, and I'm here today with Melanie Rushing, and I'm super excited that we can chat again. We got to chat the other week with Jen Starkey on the program, and I just wanted to let people know I first came across you, I believe, on Facebook. I don't even remember the exact details,
I don't either.
but yeah, but I ended up in the group for the mental sweet spot on Facebook. And I have to admit, at first I was like, okay, who's this person and what is she talking about? So I jumped in there and kind of looked through some of the posts. And what caught my attention was when you shared with everyone some of the challenges you had as a player and how the things that you're talking about now would have really helped you get through those things and maybe perform even better. So then I was like, okay, this is cool. And so then we got to kind of have our first interaction. I think you posted something about statistics and how kind of focusing too much on that can have a negative impact sometimes, depending on how you're looking at it, right? So we'll dive into all of that. But first, I just wanted to welcome you and give you a chance to kind of let people know who you are, basically like maybe where you grew up, where you played softball, how you got started in the game, if you played any other sports. Because like for me, I didn't actually want to play softball, but but I love it. I loved it once I got there. So I'm kind of curious how you got started and what other things you might have done growing up as well.
So hi. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I grew up in Southern California. So lots of outdoor activities, very little rain and snow, like some other places I've lived now. So that was a very fortunate place to grow up. I was in all sorts of things as a kid. I danced, terrible at it. Tried singing, tried acting. And sports-wise, I started t-ball when I was little and got hooked. The interesting thing is I was a single sport athlete with the exception of I tried out for volleyball, played like freshman year. I could serve a little bit, so like I made the freshman team, and they felt bad for me, so they let me join the JV team. But long story short, I was athletic, but I never stuck with anything else other than softball because I wasn't as good as that as I was at softball. So I'm like, no, just got frustrated. So that'll play into the future. So I ended up I played a ton of travel ball, played for great teams, had amazing teammates. A bunch went to big D1 schools. Like looking back now, I'm like, wow, I was with celebrities. Awesome things. But I was like nowhere close to their level. I hung with them on the team, of course, and I made an impact, but something was different from my experience. And now looking back, it was completely the head game. It was the mental side for sure. Like I would have these like moments of greatness and then I tank again, and just kept happening over and over. I ended up playing D3, which was perfect for me anyway. So back in freshman year, I was like, I'm going to UCLA. I would flounder at a big school. So that was perfect for me. Ended up being a part of a great program too, which is really nice, really good coaches, all former D1 players. So got a lot of good instruction and got better, but still was on this roller coaster ride. Like I was so inconsistent. I was like an all conference level player one day, and then like, how did she not get cut the next? It's crazy. So finally, my junior year, my coach benched me. It was the middle of the year. Benched me for an entire week through games. I was like, I don't know what else to do to help you. So this is all I can think of. Throughout my whole career, like my coaches, my dad, they're all telling me you're too hard on yourself. Stop beating yourself up. Get out of your own head. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But like, I'm not going to lower my expectations for myself. So I guess I'll just stick with it. So I just got really mad at the simplest little thing. We're looking back now, I'm like, really? Like, stop. Like, line drive, good hit, but because someone caught it, I didn't get on base, I'd pout. Come on. Right. So, logically, have one of those bad instances where it really got in my head, I was done for the rest of the game, if not the rest of the day. So, finally, after I got benched, I also happened to get a concussion on the way back, so I had 2 weeks off and picked up Mind Gym, which is a really great intro to sports psych concepts. he was a counselor. Gary Mack was a counselor that worked with a bunch of pro athletes. And so he has these great stories of how to get out of your own way and like the paradoxes of sport. What was some of the other one? Know your numbers. All these basic sports psych concepts, but in a really easily digestible way. And it instantly clicked. So I came back with like 3 weeks left of regular season, went into postseason, did pretty darn well. But then senior year was really the like light bulb year. I figured out self-talk. I got my confidence back to like real confidence, not that roller coaster that we talked about last time. And it's just so much of a better experience. I played more free and was less stressed, and I was better more often. So it really helped on both sides. And then took it into coaching, got my master's a couple of years later. I've been using it as a coach, and in this career shift, I followed my husband back down here to Florida, and so I wasn't coaching. I was like, you know what? I'm going to look into sports psych. So I had no real clue what I was going to do. No business training whatsoever. So I was like, I'll figure it out. I was kind of like, I would say like 60% committed to making this happen. And then I had our baby Patrick, and he was in the NICU for 10 days. He was on this like therapy where he was like cooled, and he looked cold, and he wasn't talking, and it was sad, and it was rough. And looking back, people kept asking me, my husband even, and my parents and his mom, like, how are you dealing with it so well? And I was like, am I like avoiding it? No, like not really feeling these emotions. But B, it was sports psych. Like, you know what? I heard it from all of my students at Kalamazoo who were seniors by the time I taught them. Everyone's like, I wish I had this sooner. I'm like, you know what? If it helped me go through this situation, everyone needs it. Yeah. So, boom, long story. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. That's awesome. So, like, first of all, I can't even imagine what it must have been. Like, I've never had a baby in the NICU, so I've never even gone through that. And like to have that the first go round is like insane. So like to have to deal with that, I honestly can't even. That's like the worst feeling when your baby's not doing well and there's so little that you can do, and you just kind of, there's so much out of your control, and it's like you just want to fix it, but you can't necessarily. So I can't even imagine what that must have been like. And I was just gonna ask about, let's see. So when you got to be a senior and things finally kind of clicked and started going well, what were your thoughts as far as like, okay, so what were you studying at that time? Were you studying something similar?
I was studying speech therapy.
Oh, okay.
So completely unrelated. I didn't take any other psychology courses. It was all self-taught. Yeah. So it was just kind of learning on the go. I definitely could have made a lot more progress if I don't know if I had more resources, or read me more books. But even with the little bit I did, it helped so much.
Yeah. So why did you pick up Mind Gym? Like, how did that even happen?
I had a friend actually suggested to me years back. And I was like, she mentioned this one book, I'll find it. So I texted her like, what was that book again? And then picked it up, and it was awesome. I flew through it. I had like little highlights everywhere. I had little tabs. It was so good.
So it didn't take long. It sounds like good books are like that. So besides that book, like, would you recommend that one to other people if they wanted to read something?
Absolutely.
And any others in particular?
That's an easy read. Heads Up Baseball is fantastic. And now Heads Up Baseball 2, they came out with a follow-up book. Beyond Grit, I've been actually listening to Sandra Kamphoff. She's a sports psychologist for the Minnesota Vikings. She just wrote a book, awesome stuff. It's all based on the same topic she talks about in her podcast, High Performance Mindset. So those three. Brian Cain's books are awesome too. The Daily Dominator is a really good one to use with teams. It's just one little blurb a day. Reminds me of your book. Your book reminds me of that. Like, I love it. It's just like, it's easily digestible, just one at a time, something to focus on that day. And you don't have to search through it. You just pick a page and you're like, like makes you feel good, make you focus in. So those are some off the top of my head.
Very cool. Okay, so you did the whole speech therapy thing, and then decided to go for your master's in
Mm-hmm.
something that obviously was like, okay, this is interesting. so then okay, you did some coaching, you got to Florida, had the baby. And so how long have you been married? Like, how fast did this baby come along in your...
Pretty fast. So we've been married 3 years now. It'll be 3 years October.
And did you always plan on having kids, or...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yep.
How do you like it so far? I mean, besides the NICU part, because that part's like, okay, that's rough, but like
the rest like my brain like chunked it and like, we're just gonna put this aside. Like, but other than that, it's been awesome, and it's been a whole new experience. I mean, what can you ever really expect? But I never planned to be a stay-at-home mom, and let alone a work-from-home mom. I think I was a little too ambitious, but hey, we make it work. But it's awesome. Like especially starting a new business while starting new momhood. So many parallels.
Yeah.
I need to control the controllables right now. Like, yes, he's upset. Yes, I already fed him. Yes, he has a clean diaper, and I don't know what else could be wrong. We're just gonna hold him and distract him
until he feels better. At some point, he'll feel better. And everyone talks about how like they can't tell you like with words, so it's like so frustrating and hard to figure out. And like, but there's only so many things it can be. And I guess if they're super upset for an extended period, you can't figure it out. Yes, that's kind of frustrating. But like when they get older and then they can talk and they can say all kinds of things, and you're just like, well, how do I answer that? Like, how do we, then it's a whole new ball game. But I have to admit that like I think the mindset and mentality, that high performing just way of looking at things is applicable for so many areas. So it's a super cool thing to kind of go off and help people with, or help athletes with, because it's going to serve them for life. There's so many different things that they can apply it to. When you see athletes that you've worked with or you've talked with, are there like certain common themes or common issues that you see pop up a lot that they're dealing with? What are some of these?
The main one I hear about is that being too hard on themselves piece, or not being able to deal with failure. That one comes up a lot. And then it kind of coincides and goes hand in hand, but then the confidence issue of, even if they are a confident person outside of sport and they are confident in their skills, that those like major dips in like getting into slumps and like when it really starts wearing them down. I think that those two things are the main things I feel people have the hardest time wading through.
I think some people don't realize, like, even the people you see as confident human beings or athletes, they even will go through those times where they feel completely uncertain or like doubting everything, right? Like everything.
Yes.
And some are even capable of moving on from failure and still being very hard on themselves when it happens. Because I sort of feel like that. Like sometimes it's really easy to just be like, well, whatever, move on. And other times it's like, I can be super hard on myself for, I don't know, certain things. And so it's interesting to me how in some areas it's like super easy to just be like, have that positive outlook and just keep moving and understanding that it's all part of the process, right? It's no big deal. And other times it's just like, I can't do this. So what do you do? Like, what are some things, maybe parents that are listening or coaches that are listening, when they're seeing an athlete that's kind of struggling, right? You can see, obviously, they're just not there. They're not feeling confident. You can just tell by their demeanor, how they're approaching the situations, how they're speaking about it even. What are maybe one or two things that they can do about it or say to that athlete? Or maybe it's not something that they need to say. Maybe it's something else that they can do that's more helpful.
I think the first thing, I got a girl in my mind, this worked really well for. The first thing is pull them aside, definitely in private, even if it's just like off the side of the field, and just ask what's going on in their head. Just very broad answer. What's going on in your head right now? And typically they'll start with like, I'm just mad about this, or like, I'm frustrated about this. And it could be on field stuff. It could be off field, completely unrelated to what just happened. But the first step is letting them like verbalize it. And one of two things happens. Either they say it out loud, and then it just makes them feel better, because then they realize like, oh, okay, no, that's not that big of a deal right now, I can move on. Or two, they realize, oh, this is really bothering me, I need to deal with it, talk it out, whatever they need. So then if it's something more tactical, like I just can't feel the ground ball today, or I don't know why I can't hit today, like, then give them something very specific and actionable to work on. Okay, so you're up at live at bats and you're whiffing at everything. Okay, take a timeout, go over to the tee, work on that outside pitch, and then I'll come over and front toss to you. Because you want to give them like that progression back into the difficult task, but then that can do wonders for especially confidence, because it's just a very quick reminder, oh, I do have this. Whereas sometimes if you just keep going, keep grinding, your brain's like, maybe I don't, maybe I can't hit, maybe I can't play softball anymore, maybe I should just quit. Like, those thoughts go through your head. Like, I still do this stuff today. But if it's something that can't necessarily be adjusted or fixed in the moment, maybe it's in a game, you can't be like, time blue, I need to pull her to get some extra reps on the side. You can go back to previous experiences, like, hey, go back to that last game, remember that game-winning hit you got, what were you doing differently? And they're like, oh, I was just trusting it, I just went up there and played. Okay, well, now what's different between this game? Really nothing. All right, see, you got this, go get it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I think that I've recently realized how helpful it is to sometimes just express what's on your mind. Like the simple act of just saying it to someone, it's like, it kind of takes some of that power away sometimes. So like, it took me forever to realize that, because I think as an athlete, I never wanted people to know that I was annoyed or frustrated or whatever. So then you just kind of hold it in. Yeah. And then like doing that in real life is not so great. So yeah. So like there was something that was really bugging me one day, and I was just like, and I knew in my brain that it wasn't a big deal, but it still felt really icky. And so I just told my husband, I was like, this is bothering me. And he was like, yeah, well, they're being dumb or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, after that, I just felt much better. Like, it was just like, okay, it's gone. So sometimes that verbalization just really helps. Other times, like you said, like giving them smaller things that they can do and take action on. Sometimes just the fact that you're quote unquote doing something about it makes you feel better, right? Like you're attacking this thing. You're not just letting it happen to you. Right. And then, yeah, of course, if they have that progression of like, okay, I feel like I can do this now. And then you go to this toss. And, I think that's important in any area, even like with fielding and stuff. Like sometimes coaches go with, let's just hit the ball really hard at them and make them figure it out. And then they lose all their confidence and you're like, okay, now what? It's like, okay, sometimes you got to break it down. And I feel like no matter how many years I played, it was always really helpful just to go back to those basics and kind of just remove them and kind of just get in the feel of it and get super comfortable with it. So it's feeling like really second nature, not having to think about it anymore, right? All that stuff.
Exactly it.
Yeah. So I think that sometimes as coaches, we forget that that's helpful. We're just like, let's just go into all this good stuff, right? Because you're like 16 now, we can skip all that, but it's actually really helpful to go back there sometimes. So even if, before something's going wrong to where they're like, I need to fix it. So what are some of your favorite, like for you as not being a player anymore, right? What are some of the big things that come up for you now, or feelings that come up for you now, even as a full-grown adult who's been through the sports thing, who's been through some success, who's been through a lot of awesome things, but do you still have things that kind of come up from time to time, or like, what's your common issue? Or maybe one that you're dealing with right now. No, whatever you want to share.
I like how people say that they're a recovering perfectionist. I don't think that's true. I don't think it's possible. If they are, fantastic. Good for you. But I think there are definitely ways to use your perfectionism. So maybe I'm just not willing to let go of it completely, because a lot of high achievers have perfectionistic qualities because they keep expecting more. They want to fine tune the little things. But man, does it get under my skin when I mess something up. Oh, or worse, when I like have this idea of what I want to do, and like something else just in life happens and throws off my plan or my schedule. I'm like, oh, I just get so grumpy. I find myself, like I said, I had to verbalize it. So poor Patrick, I'm like talking out loud, and this 10-month-old is like, what's going on, Mom? But like the other day, I got up later than usual. I got up when he got up, which means I didn't get any work done. And so I was mad and grumpy, and I was like on my phone when he was sitting there, and he started like whining and fussing. And I was like, God, why are you? Oh, never mind. Okay, focus in, put your phone down, and hang out with the kid. So that perfectionism gets me all the time because I always want to do more and do something else new and different and better. But if you don't get a handle on it, it gets out of control.
Yeah, I think I think even people who aren't necessarily, because I don't see myself as a perfectionist. Like sometimes I'm just like, well, whatever, let's just do it. It's good enough, let's just move forward. And other times I'm the same way. Like I think having 8 kids has kind of beat some of that out of me because like nothing goes the way that it's supposed to, like ever, right? So I used to be this like list making, like it just go down that checklist and check all these things off my to-do list and I cross everything off. Even when I had one kid, I felt like such a rock star, like all these things done, right? And then so I had these planners and, I felt super organized. And then after I had like a few of them and I would have this list and it was just like such a frustrating thing because nothing ever worked out. And
cross
I had
one off, add 5 more.
Yeah, and so I would even like organize them. I'm like, okay, what's the best, order for me to do these things in? What's going to be most efficient? What's going to be fastest? Well, how, all these things, figured it all out. And like, I would get to like step 3 and then all this other stuff would happen. And it's just like, so it became a really frustrating situation for me to have this to-do list that I couldn't execute. And so, that's years and years and years ago. So like, so I don't do that anymore because it just wasn't working for my situation. But like, I can totally relate to that thing. And and I think that, well, I kind of just asked you that question because I know as a new mom and a new, business venture type of thing, like you're going to have stuff. Stuff is going to come up for you.
So much stuff.
Yeah. And so for me, parenting has definitely been like a personal growth journey. Business is the same way. So, I mean, I think life is just like that. Like life is a whole big thing. So it'll always, I believe that it will always deliver to you the exact lessons that you need for whatever reason. You might not realize it yet, but the game has a way of doing that. I think it dishes up those situations that helps you grow in exactly the way you need to. And I think life does the same thing. Children, by the way, FYI, do the same thing for you as well. So, so I hear parents like so frustrated, like, oh, my kid this, and I'm just thinking to myself, so what do you think the lesson is here for you? Rather than trying to like make your child, they're like so insistent upon, my kid has to, how do I get them to blah, blah, blah. And like, if you just take a deep breath and stop for a second and think about what the lesson is here for you and get that going. Oftentimes the rest of it kind of like figures, you get it figured out. But that took me a long time to realize. So, and so
thank you for sharing it because it helped me.
So I needed lots of opportunities to learn this. So just in case, you might be able to pick up on it a little sooner than me, right? And have a slightly easier time. But then I'm sure your child will deliver other wonderful lessons for you. So yeah. So have fun with that. But at least they're super cute, right? So it's like,
absolutely. End of the day, you're like, oh, but you're still cute. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, what are some of your favorite like tools, whether it's, I don't know, I mean, you've already talked about some of your favorite books, right? But what are some of your favorite like tricks or tips that either you use or you find that players really grab onto and kind of, are able to apply and execute?
The number one thing that everyone can benefit from is how to take a correct deep breath. Like I think a lot of people will be like, take a deep breath, like, okay, oh, no, that wasn't it. But taking that diaphragm breath, like breathing in through the stomach, it immediately calms you. Every one of my players I've ever talked to, I ask them, like, okay, what things really helped you this year? Like, try and take mental notes of what to work on next year. They're like, oh, those deep breaths. I'm like, that was it. All the other stuff I planned and practiced and the deep breaths. So that one is huge. For any time you are like overamped or distressed or worried or just over analyzing, anytime your brain or your body is going too fast, that deep breath helps immediately. So I love that. And you can do it in the middle of an at-bat, which I love.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
And then another one was kind of with that, like knowing your ideal energy zone. Like, okay, am I a high energy player, or am I middle, or am I much better when I'm relaxed and low energy? And then using your breaths, and typically the girls are like, I use music to get pumped up. Like, fantastic, that's easy. And then finding your zone, I think that helps take a lot of the guesswork away from how am I feeling before this pitch, before this at bat. I think those are the top two that I feel people click with right away, and it's not a quick fix, but it's an immediate adjustment. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I love the deep breathing. It's so simple, and I know a lot of other high-level performers will even talk about, like, we just don't breathe right. Like, we're so, like on a regular basis, like the way that our breathing patterns are just messed up and interrupted, and then we feel stressed and all these things. So that's fascinating to me. And also, one thing that really kind of made that hit home for me, I wasn't coaching yet, but I definitely had heard about breathing and taking that deep calming breath and all that. And then of course, having my first child without an epidural and using lots of breathing technique, right? Ooh. So it was like, breathe like this, breathe like that. I'm like, if this breathing thing can help you with this, like it's got to be able to help you with, a hit or whatever, right? So, like, got to be something to this breathing thing. And so there's that. And then it's interesting that you mentioned the energy thing, because, some people like to get really active and move around a lot, right? And they feel pumped. And I distinctly remember before one of our daughter's first boxing match, she literally was just sitting like for quite a long time. And she just sat there, didn't hardly move, didn't say anything. And we're like, is she okay? Is she, But that's like how she is. She likes to just be super chill and relaxed. Like she doesn't want to get all like, fired up and motivated like some people do. So that's really interesting to see. And like her coach will even tell her like, did you even warm up when she started wrestling? Because wrestling's forever. When I first saw the wrestling tournament, and all the wrestlers are like bouncing up and down before everything, I was like, they all look so nervous to me. Like that just looks like,
right?
Like tense. Like, why don't you save your energy? This is a hard sport, That's
like what I was thinking. Like, no way that's good for what you have to do in minutes.
I know. I was like, why is everybody jumping? They're going to use up all their energy, but it's what they do. I don't know. And so my girls are kind of new to it, so they sort of did it, but. My daughter said that her coach would always tell her like, did you even warm up, jump around or something, like your hands are cold? And she's just kind of more, she did a little bit because that's what you're supposed to do, I guess, but she was just a much more like quiet, relaxed, kind of person. So it's interesting that you talk about that with athletes to kind of get to know themselves, because like once you get really more and more aware of like what works for you or what feels comfortable for you or what feels like makes you feel like, okay, I got this, like it's in control. That's really important to know. So, I used to like to eat green M&Ms and it was like, you're so superstitious. I'm like, well, this is I didn't know this at the time. Then I learned about routines, right? And so I'm like, see, it was my routine. It's not superstition. It's part of what makes me feel like, okay, all is right in my world. Like I feel calm and cool. So
I love that. It was great. Good color choice.
Yeah, and then brown if there was no green. So if there was like a fundraiser, if there was a fundraiser going on in school and we had a game, like people would be selling M&Ms. They're like, oh, we need a box of that for our game.
That's awesome.
So, did you have any of those kinds of like things that you felt like you needed to do as a player? Did you like know about pre-game routines and stuff like that when you were playing?
Not really, and I don't know before junior year if I had even any awareness of what I was doing. But then senior year, I had a routine. I called it scouting. The team that I would look at their stats, like, and the coach is like, that's not scouting. But at least I got some information. I don't know why. The information for me as an overanalyzer helped me. I felt prepared the next game, even though stats don't matter, and we will talk about that later. And then I would make sure I got at least 8 hours of sleep 2 nights before and 6 to 8 the night before. I mean, good sleep is important, but I don't know if that was the magical thing, but it worked for me. And then, I would get up and we'd do our regular routine, and we'd go eat breakfast in the caf and then go to games.
Awesome. So
I didn't have anything weird, superstitious or ritually.
The sleep thing's interesting also because I think a lot of players don't feel the importance of sleeping. Like, we're always telling our players the night before, like, be in bed by this time, like by yourself, and
no phone.
No phone, like literally ready to go to sleep because you have to be up by this time and all this stuff. But and I don't know how much of it sinks in. I don't know how much of them care, but sleep actually does matter. And then wrapping back around to the stats thing. So let's kind of end with that. We were talking about how, everyone talks about process versus outcome, right? And stats can be useful. I know for me, one of my goals every game was to at least get 1 hit. I wanted to try to at least get 1 hit because I knew that I would probably have 3 at bats, maybe 4, but I often walked. So I was probably going to only actually have 2 to 3, at bats stat wise. So 1 hit's good, if I got an extra one, it's bonus. And so it was just something that was a personal challenge for me. And I don't know if it felt like a good thing, but I know that wouldn't work for everyone because then they would get all caught up with the numbers and, so why don't you share a little bit about the stat thing and how you've seen it affect people?
So stats are our need for information and just wanting to know things. The problem with stats is they are all outcome based, and I would say 90% out of our control. You don't have control over the ball coming towards you. You do not have control over what pitches the girl throws. You don't have control over the fielders or where the wind will take the ball or where a bad hop might take the ball. So why are you putting so much of your self-worth and confidence into these numbers? So I think my first year at Jacksonville, I developed a quality bat system based on some of the things I had learned from other people. And it was counting things that you could control a little bit more, like hard contact, taking a pitcher deep into the count, or some other ones, a walk, of course, sacrifice bunt, sacrifice fly, all those things that were more in your control. And that went okay. But then I learned it was still a number that wasn't completely within their control. So it was still I had to wait for the outcome to see if I got there. Was that ball 4 going to get called? Or was it going to be a backwards K? Wow, that was a bad thing that we had bonus points one year. So that was negative points. I actually had a player come up to me because I had sit at the end of the dugout with my stats, and she argued with me over whether it was a quality at bat or not. And this player was hands down the best player on our team. And she was so concerned with that one stat. I was like, what? Granted, she crushed a ball straight up. 15 stories. She's like, but coach, it was hit hard. I'm like, it went this direction. That, no, it doesn't count. So then I had to clarify, okay, it must be at this angle. I'm like, this is getting ridiculous. So we kind of adjusted that. But then we ended up moving on from that job. So I took it into my next job. I was like, I think I'm going to go about this a little bit different way. I'm not going to tell them the stats. We're not going to base playing time on stats, but I am going to tell them about it and tell them it goes into my decision making. Even just me telling them that started going in their heads. So every contact, was that hard contact? Is she going to count that? What? I'm like, oh man, dang it. So finally, year 3, I kept them for myself in my own head just to have more information on those days where I had a lineup situation. But after that, I was like, no more. So when you go up to bat, you're thinking about the situation and what you want to do out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not thinking about mechanics. You're not thinking about, oh, this girl throws this, so I need to do this and adjust. Like, you make your plan on deck. When you go up to bat, you see it and go. And that helped a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And I don't know, I feel like some people just don't grasp that because there's so much more that's going on than the statistical outcome. And they're like, well, why does this person get to play like her stats, this, and it's like, but it's not just about the stats. Like there are other things going on besides whether or not you actually got a hit, because sometimes you can have the worst hit ever and it's still a hit because it lands in the right spot. And other times you can have a phenomenal at bat with a wonderful hit and it's an out because someone dove and caught the ball in the outfield or whatever, right? And so, there's so many things that are unseen on the paper. And I think good coaches take that kind of thing into consideration and know like which players are actually going up there with a legitimate plan that makes sense in the situation, and which players are just clueless. Like they just don't know. I don't know. They're just like focused on the wrong thing. And yes, sometimes they get decent outcomes, right? But like if they really knew the game or like really understood, like what do we need from you right now? And we're insistent upon executing that. Like that's a valuable player, like even if maybe it doesn't necessarily seem like it on paper. And I think that really good coaches can sense that or can see that. And that does come into consideration, not just the arm or the batting average or what have you. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. And there's so many more things that we can dig into because I wanted to ask you another question, but then we talk for another half an hour because, you and I could probably talk all night if it were up to us.
It's true.
But it was in regards to like how you looked at other aspects of an at-bat and just kind of being able to acknowledge that the hit isn't the only thing, but like there are other things going on within an at-bat that's worth acknowledging, even if the outcome wasn't what you wanted. Like even if you struck out again, did you take it deeper into account? Did you make better pitch selection than you did the last time? Like, did you actually have a clue, right? And did you, all of those things matter. And that's still progress, even though it's still a K. Like you're still noticeably on your way toward a better at-bat at some point. And so knowing about that and being aware of that, I think is good. But yeah, I feel like super over-analyzing it and letting it be like, oh my gosh, was that good? Like, oh, that just kind of, still gets in the way. So there are, like you said, there are good ways to use the stats. There are good ways to, take those perfectionistic qualities that you have or anyone may have and utilize it to the best of your ability. So the other thing that came to mind was I come across athletes and even parents sometimes who will see something like perfectionism, doesn't necessarily have to be that, and they can see all the ways that it's hurting the performance, but they're not recognizing the upside. And they seem to be in a frame of mind that we need to make that stop in order for you to perform. And I just want them, like, my thing was like, well, you may never change that about this person, right? Like they may never be rid of it, but that doesn't mean to me that they can't succeed. Like they can still get to where they want to go, even with it. They just kind of have to learn how to channel it better or let it work for them rather than only working against them, right? So would you agree with, you sound like you would agree with that idea.
Totally. I love that. And I think as soon as we stop like trying to push it away and being afraid of it, like I was thinking of something even more like tough to deal with, like anxiety. Like players who actually have clinical anxiety and experience those symptoms, that's hard. Of course you want that to stop, but at the same time you can take things from it. Okay, I get anxious when it's something I care about. So it's something I'm deeply passionate about, and I'm just starting to get these anxious feelings because I'm nervous about what if I don't perform. All right, well, I can use that. And then, of course, other techniques to deal with the physical side effects of anxiety. But it doesn't have to be like, oh, just, I don't know, you got to fix it right now. Stop being that way. Like, that's who I am. I am a perfectionist person. I am hard on myself. I am an over-analyzer. at all things.
Yeah.
But you know what? There are some good things that come from it, and I can kind of keep it from going too far to the bad side by managing it along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that anxiousness is one big one that, you know, of course, like you said, they physically feel junk, like the bad stuff, right? Like it physically, it's hard. And so, you know, it's natural for them to like, I wish I wasn't an anxious person. But I think it's super important to acknowledge and to realize, like, and even people that have like really big reactions to things that may not be the best reaction, but like, you know, kind of helping them deal with that, but also understanding that like this happens, like you said, because they care so deeply about what's going on, which is a wonderful thing. Like that's a really good thing. And it's part of why they're also so driven and so capable of achieving humongous things, right? As long as they're not like applying it in these ways that are like less than helpful. And, but that takes time, right? I would think like that takes time to kind of learn how to work with it or utilize it in better ways. And one thing that people get frustrated in is like one day they'll do great, like you're saying, and then like the next day they'll feel like awful, and then they feel like, oh, see, it's not working and I'm not getting better at this. And it's like that's what progress looks like. This is how it is, right? Like sometimes pitchers have a great day and sometimes pitchers have a terrible day, and that doesn't mean that they're not developing, that they're not getting better, that they're not a good pitcher or anything. So, you know, I think it's really helpful to kind of keep that perspective and to be really like, yes, you can be hard on yourself, but also develop the ability to be really understanding too, and to know that like, you know, just because things are not perfect today doesn't mean that I'm suddenly the worst player ever or the worst human being ever or what have you, because it really feels that way sometimes to people. So and sometimes like knowing that in your brain is one thing, feeling it is another, but at least knowing it is a start, right?
Right. At least like if I can tell myself like, okay, just give it a minute.
Yeah, this past week has been like, it's perfect that I'm talking to you now, because like this past week for me has been like such, like I'm normally really good at staying optimistic and staying like having this positive outlook, and this past week it's been just like, oh my gosh, like I so much wanted to be like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, wait, that's not a good response. So like, like okay, let's just give it a little bit of time, maybe a whole day, maybe, you know. But then when you kind of you know, like slowly get back to, sometimes more slowly than others, get back to feeling like, okay, your normal self or better. It's just, you know, I think it's all part of really just getting to know yourself better, which is always beneficial, and understanding at some level that it's part of this bigger process that is in some way going to be helpful at some point down the road.
You're like, no way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, why do I need to go through this? Like, we can just skip this part. Right. Just tell me the lesson. Let me read about it instead of experience it. But yeah, like
we give us shortcut. Here we go.
Right. Just send me to a school or something. No. But I am so thankful that you're putting out there like these tools and resources that people can use. I know that some athletes are already taking advantage of them and are enjoying the benefits. So can you please share with people where they can connect with you or find you online, or where they can tap into some of these tools and resources that you have?
Yeah, well, my website is mentalsweetspot.com. I've got a blog there. You can check out the articles on there. Also follow on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It is just me running this right now, so I don't have a ton up yet, but I'm also finding other people's good stuff and reposting that, like this podcast. And then also part of that, getting to know yourself, I've created a mental toughness profile and also utilize a program called Athlete Types. So their program is basically a personality test for athletes. And I took it, my business partner took it, who else? And we're like, yes, this is exactly right. Oh, a good friend of mine took it. So that's pretty darn accurate. They've done it with a ton of people, lots of pro teams, college teams, all the way down. And it's a really good start to figure out, okay, what type of player am I? What type of mental toughness things I need to work on? And then I added my piece for mental strengths, talking about committed, competitive, confident, and kind of self-evaluation, figuring out which one of those are your best. And so I think we talk a lot in my field and even in coaching about the best of the best are A, B, and C. And so like, I know personally, I looked at those A, B, and C. I'm like, okay, I kind of got A, but like, oh, I suck at B and C. I've got to focus on those. But my message is like, okay, forget B and C. Like if they're like struggling, work on it, but focus on your strengths.
Yeah.
This is a project of mine, but I want to ask the girls who are on the Olympic team now, like of these 7, pick one that you're good at. And like, which one is your best? I believe that they have maybe 1 or 2 that they lean on to make them exceptional players. So you can start that process, and it has a guide that you can go through and kind of fill out a worksheet.
Yeah, and I love that concept because I think it's one that we don't even realize that we've learned to do totally differently. Like within the school system, it's like, what are you weak at? Let's get extra work there. Let's take extra tutoring there, right? Extra homework, extra, like all the extra goes into our weaknesses. And so without even thinking about it, that's what we tend to focus on. But when you talk to like any world-class performer, like anyone who's like really going for it and getting stuff done, they're like, forget your weaknesses. Like, okay, maybe you can work on them a little, you know, like you said, you're not gonna like completely ignore them. You're not gonna like put your head in the sand about them either, but like really know what you're good at and like hit that like every time. And within a team environment, I think it's even more essential because every single person then brings a different thing to the team, which makes a comprehensive unit, right? So why are you going to try to do all the things that so-and-so next to you does well? Because like, that's her role. Like your role is not to be sort of like her, it's to be your best you, like the best thing that you have. And so I really am doing my best, especially with my kids and even with myself, like to get really, you know, identify those things, which can be difficult for people. From what I see, is like, it's kind of sometimes difficult to really see for yourself where your best strengths are. So I think it does help to have like someone else or an outside framework that helps you identify those things so that you can really go, oh, okay, this makes sense to me now. And it's actually okay for me to like go there and do that rather than constantly worry about, oh, but I can't do this and I can't do that. And it's like, I think for me, I tell people I couldn't even hit an outside pitch until college, and yet somehow I still got there. So, but you know, it's all about like making your weakness completely irrelevant. If you pitch me something else, then of course I'm going to hit that because, you know, then the outside thing doesn't matter. Like you're not going to live there. And even if you did, I just squeeze up on the plate and make it an inside pitch. So, you know, but like, knowing what it is so that you can play to your strengths and just make the other things, you're still going to have that weakness, but it's not going to hurt you as much when you know how to kind of work around it. Or in a team environment, you can, as a coach, you can kind of put together people who will complement each other so that they cover each other's back, if you will, or, you know, that kind of thing. It's nice to have teammates for that. So I love that, because I think a lot of parents don't even realize that they're not doing that with their kids, and they're not doing that when they look at them, and just having that permission to be like, you can actually go hard at what you are great at, and appreciate that about yourself rather than beating yourself up over all the other stuff all the time. So I love that you point that out and bring that up for people. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing. I love having conversations with you, and we'll probably do it again at some point, I'm sure.
Yes,
and thank you so much for your Facebook group too. You have a group on Facebook with stuff.
Oh yes. Mental Sweet Spot Coaches Mastermind.
Something like that. I think if you search Mental Sweet Spot, you'll find it.
Yep, that's how I do it. Join us.
But join us. Have fun. Connect with Melanie. She's so much fun. High energy. Love it so much. Like, I was expecting this mental performance person to be like serious and like, and she's just so fun. So I love it. I love the smiles and the positive energy, and also the understanding that you have of people who are, you know, struggling with certain things. You can relate to them, and so that's always easier to to know that it's not just somebody who theoretically studied about it in a master's course and now they're trying to tell you what to do. Like, you know, she's been there, still experiencing things that, you know, need to be worked on, but being in
even
the
as a coach, like, have my master's and still mess things up, like, ooh. Whoops.
Yeah, so we're always learning, and I think that when players and parents and coaches can embrace that about themselves, like, things get way easier. So yeah, so great talking to you. Thank you for taking the time to be here, and we'll chat again soon for sure.
Thanks,
Melanie.
Have a good night.